Hi, good morning everybody. Welcome to today's Planning Committee meeting. Glad to say we are well and truly caught. That's good news. First item on the agenda is apologies for absence. I've only had one that I'm aware of, which is Councillor Matthew Pym. Just making sure we don't have any other apologies. No. And can I ask if anybody has any declarations of interest to make before we make a start? No? Okay, that's great. Thank you. Right, the next item is the minutes of the previous meeting, which you've all received in your packs. So, could I have somebody to propose that there are true records, please? Councillor Perkins, thank you. Seconder? Councillor Rheoli, thank you very much. All in favour? Okay, carried. Lovely. Thank you. So we'll move on to the main part of the agenda now then. We've got some slight changes to the order. The first item... Sorry, there's somebody about to speak.
Apologies, Chair.
The first item that was on the list... Have we got a bit of feedback somewhere? Right. Okay, so the first item that was on the agenda, that's now been removed. So we're going to move on to what was item 3 in your list, which is application 26/0029 in the Tredegar Park and Marshfield ward. We have Adam Foote is going to be presenting this one to committee, and then we do have a couple of public speakers as well. So, if we move on to Adam, please. Thank you.
Thank you, Chair. Okay, so the application site comprises of a detached dwelling on a relatively recently completed residential development or just off St Mellons Road. The property is the end of a row of 5, and this application would seek the regularisation of the extension of residential curtilage to the front of the dwelling, the construction of a access and driveway which utilises the access that was previously existing, serving the original dwelling that was previously demolished to make way for the new residential development. So members will note the site location plan with the development area outlined in red. So the subject of the application site is to the front of the property. The development is submitted on a part retrospective basis as the driveway has been constructed, and there's some additional works that are required to achieve suitable visibility space. The plans currently shown on screen shows the previous arrangement, so members will note the grassed area to the front of number 21 and the previous access point, as previously mentioned, which served as the access point to the dwelling that was previously demolished. And then we have on the right-hand side the current arrangement. So the area has been hard surfaced in pavers to provide an additional access that would serve only number 21, opposed to access previously being gained via the central point of the development, which provided access to the previous 5 houses. You'll note that there's also been a retaining wall constructed to maintain the existing or the previously constructed tarmac area, and the red, I'll get to this in a section, but the red area is proposed as a reduction of the existing boundary wall as to provide suitable visibility. Again, just an element to show the key here. So the area to the front of the dwelling was not previously included within the residential curtilage, so this would also result in a change of use of that land, where previously this was access and sort of just a grassed area as approved as part of the previous redevelopment of the site. So we have here, on the right-hand side, you'll notice a section which just indicates the extent of the retaining structure and sort of enclosure of the fencing that's been constructed. I'll get some photographs in a little while which better illustrates what's been done and what's proposed. And then what we have here at present is the entrance point is flanked by 2 pillars. So you'll notice these on this drawing here. They are sort of identical and provide a symmetrical access point. Were to achieve suitable visibility from this access, the pillar is proposed to be reduced in height in this location, and also a section of the wall is proposed to be reduced in height. That would provide suitable visibility for access and egress, and that has been done to overcome concern raised by the local highways authority. Just takes you through some photographs. So this is the existing arrangement. You'll note the existing boundary wall. And you have the small retaining feature with the boundary enclosure. Just again, some photographs demonstrating the wall and the existing pavias that have been added. Just one looking down St. Malins Road. So in terms of the visual amenity element, the local planning authority is satisfied that the reutilisation of a previous access is acceptable in principle. We don't consider this to have any unacceptable adverse visual impact that would be harmful to the character or amenity of the area. The existing entry point would be maintained and would provide access to the other 4 properties. In terms of residential amenity, the closest properties are the neighbouring properties completed as part of this development and the properties located on the other side of the entrance here. There's no concern in terms of impact upon residential amenity. We have no concerns in terms of flooding, flood risk, or drainage due to the construction of the driveway, and the applicant has provided a biodiversity enhancement. This application is reported to committee at the request of Councillor Screen, which has been received following 5 objections lodged to the public consultation. These were primarily raising concern over the works to the boundary wall. The applicants have provided documentation showing that they do own the wall and the wall is within their ownership. This has been disputed, but we've had no evidence submitted to the contrary. The wall is not listed, nor is it in a conservation area. Therefore, works can be undertaken to it by the owner at will without the express consent of the local planning authority. Consideration has been given to this during the assessment of the application. Other concerns relating to a loss of privacy or impact upon the living conditions of neighbouring residents are not shared by the local planning authority, as this is not considered to have any unacceptable impact in that regard. So the application is recommended for approval subject to conditions, being firstly, compliance with the proposed scheme, that the works to the wall as proposed will be undertaken within 3 months of this consent, as to ensure that the visibility displays and safe access and egress can be achieved, are undertaken within 3 months, and that we would have the compliance condition for the implementation of the biodiversity enhancement. Yeah, so that's the recommendation and reason for the application being at committee. Thank you, Chair.
Excuse me. Thanks, Adam. We've got 2 public speakers. The first speaker is Kath Davis, speaking against the proposal. Kath, you've got 5 minutes. Okay, I'll try and give you a little heads up when you come to the end of the 5, just so you know. Okay, but whenever you're ready.
Switch my mic on.
Thanks.
Chair, members of the Planning Committee, I don't know if there's photographs there. I don't know if they'll be shared. Anyway, thank you for allowing me the opportunity to speak. I would like to make it quite clear from the outset that my objection is not to the development or access in principle. My concern is specifically about the proposed rejection of the existing boundary wall and pillar and whether the permanent harm that would be caused to this historic feature is justified. The existing boundary wall is simply not a boundary. It's an architecturally significant heritage structure that contributes greatly to the character and identity of this part of St Mullins Road. It's over 150 years old and represents a standard of craftsmanship and construction that has largely been lost in modern development. The substantial stonework, integral pillars, traditional proportions and historic materials are part of the legacy of the former Marshfield House and form an important feature within the street scene. The materials used in this wall are no longer readily available in the form in which they were originally constructed. Even if replacement materials were carefully selected, they would never possess the same colour, texture, weathering or craftsmanship that has developed naturally over more than a century and a half. This wall is more than an old boundary, it's a legacy structure. It provides a tangible link with the history of the area and contributes positively to the distinctive character of St Mullins Road. Once altered, its historic authenticity will never be restored. This is why the proposal is not a minor alteration. The loss or rejection of part of the wall would permanently change an important heritage feature. The wall creates a sense of enclosure, defines the frontage and provides a visual continuity that existed for generations. The Planning Officer's report itself acknowledges that reducing the pillar and associated section of the wall would disrupt the symmetry of the entrance features and would not appear visually coherent. I respectfully suggest that the point deserves significant greater weight than it has been given. My concern is also practical. Altering the structure of this age and construction is not comparable to modifying a modern garden wall. There is a genuine concern that reducing the wall may not prove achievable in the manner shown on the submitted drawings. If that is the case, there is a real possibility that a much larger section or even the whole wall could ultimately be lost. That would represent the permanent loss of the heritage asset that simply cannot be recreated. I had lived within the street scene for 36 years. During this time, the wall has remained one of the defining features of the area. It is part of what gives the location its identity and distinguishes it from modern developments. Once lost, it is lost forever. The second issue is whether the additional access is actually necessary. The property already benefits from a purpose-built communal access that was specifically designed to safely serve the development. The access already exists, functions effectively, and provides appropriate access for residents. The proposal would create another access immediately adjacent to the entrance to Orchard Close, a secluded private close serving 9 homes. Although Orchard Close is a private road, it is a shared residential environment rather than simply a vehicular route. Residents walk along it every day, visitors arrive on foot, deliveries are made throughout the day, and importantly, children are able to play because it is an enclosed residential setting. The entrance already accommodates approximately 20 resident vehicles, together with visitors, delivery drivers, Amazon vans, supermarket deliveries, etc. Modern resident roads experience greater levels of delivery traffic than it did a decade ago. Introducing another access immediately adjacent to the entrance increases the number of vehicle movements and driver decision-making at precisely the point where pedestrians and vehicles already interact. The existing community access was designed for precisely this purpose. The question, therefore, is not whether another access can be created, but whether another access is necessary where a safe and established access already exists. The fact there was once an historic access serving Marshfield House does not automatically make its reinstatement appropriate today.
Take a start around that, please. Sorry.
Sorry, time?
You've got about another 30 seconds, so...
Oh, right, sorry. The question, therefore, is not whether another access can be created, but whether another access is necessary, when a safe and established access already exists. The fact that there was once an historic access serving Marshfield House does not automatically make its reinstatement appropriate today. The road network, traffic volumes and surrounding residential environments have changed significantly. Also, highway safety, the proposed access joins St Mellons Road at a point where traffic transitions from 60 miles an hour to 20
Sorry, I
miles
will
an
have to
hour.
ask you to finish off, please.
Finish off or?
Finish off really quickly, please. Yeah, thanks.
Right, so it's traffic safety as well, and also the precedent that it sets by altering this historic structure. Thank you.
Thanks very much. The second speaker we've got is Councillor Screen. So over to you, please. Thanks.
Yeah, thank you, Chair. I don't intend to go into any great detail because Ms Davis has already done that. In a written application, there's a lot of detail laid out in the objections. There were 5 residents who objected. And just to summarise that, basically, it's altering the fundamental character and nature of the area, surrounding area. I have driven along there myself, and I can see how this would alter dramatically the character of the area. There's also the traffic aspects. There's also questions about whether planning law is complied with. So there's quite a lot of detailed objections. And it's also a retrospective application following the creation of unauthorised access, which has already been refused. And I think, you know, as a council, we need to take a stronger stance on things like retrospective applications. You know, people can do something and then apply for planning permission afterwards. You know, I think that's something that perhaps, as a council, we should address. So, yeah, so just finally to say that I think the details, you know, the objections are detailed. I don't think the conditions attached to the approval of the application are sufficient. So I'd just like to thank the Chair Committee for the opportunity to call this in and also to allow us to speak to it. Okay, diolch. Thank you, Chair.
Thank you, Councillor Screen. We'll open to questions to the floor now, so if anybody has got any questions, please, or comments. Councillor Perkins.
Right, so, was the landscaping part of the previous planning permission, albeit grass? So the landscaping, albeit just a patch of grass, was it in as part of the previous planning permission? And it states in the pack that this entryway had previously been refused. Is that correct? And then it also says that the owner of the property has provided a title deed to say ownership of the wall. Can you confirm if that is correct as well, please?
Yes. So the original scheme for this plot of land is subject to a number of planning consents and variations of those consents. So originally there was 4 houses consented, and then an additional 5th property was consented, which is now being constructed. So that grassed area did form part of the previous scheme. So yes, in terms of the sort of soft landscaping and the approved details, that was previously approved. That is correct. In terms of the land ownership, yes, the applicant has provided a title deed which shows that the wall is within their ownership and control. The sort of how the land has been sold is sectioned between the different houses, and with this house is positioned within the plot, it does include the land ownership up to that, up to and including that boundary. So we are satisfied that that is correct, and we've had no evidence to the contrary. Like I said, the ownership was raised as part of via the public consultation, and that's why that was sort of investigated further. And then in terms of the any sort of refused access, I mean, like I said, there's been quite a significant history on this side. So the access, as is there in situ, was previously for the one property that was on that occupied that site. That was the access there. That wasn't deemed to be suitable to serve further residential properties, so more than one, and that's why there's the central access point that we have today. But like you said, in this case, this particular access would only serve the one property, and on the basis that we can achieve suitable visibility, we have no objection to that. And just to sort of address some of the concerns raised by the public speaker, I appreciate what they're saying in terms of the loss of the wall, impact on character of the area, but there's no statutory designation to protect this feature. This wall can be removed at will at any time. And in terms of the other concerns raised about visibility, with properties, accessing or egressing Orchard Close, this will, the reduction of the wall there will in turn improve visibility for Orchard Close also. From our perspective, we have no tangible reason to refuse this application, which is why it's recommended for approval subject to conditions.
So, as you say, because he owns the wall, he could make any changes to it without needing the planning permission. It's just for the driveway we're really doing the permission for.
So the consent would include all elements as proposed, but the elements that are requiring planning permission is the extension of the residential curtilage forward of the principal elevation up to the boundary, and the creation of the hard surface within that, and the reprofiling. So the construction of the retaining wall would also be included. But yes, that is correct. The wall is not subject to any statutory designation. We're not in a conservation area, nor is the wall listed. So there's no protections afforded to that wall. We require the visibility to be improved to support the access. But again, that can be done at will.
Councillor Jordan, you're next.
Oh, sorry. Yeah, thanks, Chair. Just going back there on Adam on that, then it comes again to us again. They've done this work to the driveway without putting the planning permission in to start off with, and by looking at the application details, it says change of use of land to residential curtilage and reinstating driveway. Well, there wasn't no driveway in the first place if it was a new property being built, and the grass area was already there. So how come they can actually go ahead and do a driveway without putting the application in?
So with regards to the planning process, it's not designed to be punitive. So the functionality exists within the Town and Country Planning Act for applications to be submitted on a retrospective basis in order to regularise them. There is no basis for us to be punitive in our approach to the assessment of applications purely because they are submitted on a retrospective basis. My understanding here is, or in this case, is that the applicant was unaware that they would need planning consent for this because they believed that because the land was in their ownership, they would be able to undertake it, not understanding that the land fell outside of their defined residential curtilage. So they have basically tried to follow the requirements of the General Permitted Development Order by utilising porous paviours having a drainage channel to make sure that what they thought they were implementing a lawful development. Unfortunately, there was a lack of understanding around the curtilage, and therefore planning consent is required. But that's why this is submitted on a retrospective basis in this instance, as far as I'm aware. But like you said, the fact that it's submitted retrospectively does not form part of our assessment, nor can we penalise someone because they have done something without first obtaining consent.
Okay, thanks.
Thanks, Councillor Jordan. Councillor Harvey.
Yeah, just for a point of clarity, they applied for a driveway before and was refused, and they've still put a driveway in retrospective. Is that correct?
So they did apply for the driveway previously, but we didn't. This was a different scheme, and we were concerned around the visibility displays. So this is why this scheme has been amended to address the previous concerns.
Just my concern is you said they was unaware. Well, they was obviously aware if they applied for a driveway before and were refused, and then they've gone ahead and put a driveway in retrospective.
Those works had already commenced.
Thanks, Councillor Harvey. Councillor Watkins, your hand was up next.
Thank you, Chair. What sort of bedrooms are in the rest of the properties? If you could put up the floor plan of the actual development that took place, please.
I know I don't have floor plans for the internals of the property as part of this application.
No, you have a floor plan of the development, not necessarily of every property, but where the other properties were. Not necessarily how many rooms are in there or anything like that, but I will require that because I'm concerned whether there's enough parking spaces for, if they're 3-bedroom houses or 4-bedroom houses, then they're going to need X amount of parking spaces. That's what I'm looking for there. So the other properties on that development are what? 3-bedroom, 4-bedroom?
My understanding is they're 4 bedrooms.
So what parking requirements are required for those properties then?
They would have to, according to our parking standards, that would be 3 spaces.
So by taking that, the application's development out of that, that then would restrict the other parking requirements for those other developments?
No, this doesn't impact the parking provision to the other houses.
Okay. In my opinion, it will, but that's besides the point. The other one is the pillar, which is going to be shortened. What is the reason for that being shortened?
To achieve visibility for access and egress.
So why isn't the other pillar being shortened as well?
They don't require that for the visibility because of the sort of topography of the land and for where it's accessed. It might be useful for the highways officer to come in and answer that, though. Kevin, are you able to provide a further bit of explanation on that, please?
Yes, good morning. The pillar itself could actually be retained, because the way that we view this is that if you're driving towards the exit and you can see behind the pillar and then see it again in front of the pillar, then we don't have to remove it. So the pillar could actually be retained, but the piece of wall behind it would have to come out. So I don't know, I mean, from my perspective, that is okay, but it doesn't sound right visually or whatever. So yeah, the provisions for visibility allow some obstructions. So for example, lamp cones, telegraph poles, gate posts can be retained, but you have to be able to see as you approach. So see behind it, if you like. Does that help?
To a certain extent, Chair, it does help. But what concerns me that the other entrance requires the visibility splays for that entrance. Yet on this one, it doesn't. And that concerns me. That's going to be an obstruction for somebody coming out of that development and looking left.
The requirements for any access will be the same. But the point is that the way that it works is that we can accept a pillar, but we can't accept that you can't see until after you've passed it. If you can see behind it as you approach it, we can accept a small obstruction. So in theory, you could take, from my perspective at least, you could take the wall out and leave the pillar, although I think it might look a bit odd, but you could do that and it would still pass the visibility test.
Looking at the photograph which is on the screen at the moment, you would have to be on the highway because of the grass verge which is outside the other part of the development, and therefore the driver seated in the driving position, that pillar would obstruct it.
I mean, the highways officer has answered that point.
Yeah, I understand that. Okay. The other thing is, Chair, I'm concerned with the two pillars, or the one pillar being reduced, and it will affect the symmetry of the building and the development altogether. And I don't actually see why they want another entrance, because there's an entrance there which can serve all the other development as well as that one. I see it unnecessary.
Do you want to comment on that?
No, I don't have any comment on that. I mean, people are entitled to apply for what they wish with the land which is under their control. It's development that is complementary to an existing dwelling. We've no issue with the principle of it. I take the point on the symmetry that has been acknowledged, and again, significant weight is given to the fact that if they wanted to, they could remove the entire wall without consent. So really that's our fallback position in regards to that. The symmetry can be impacted or affected irrespective of any planning controls.
Chair, one further. Could we go back to the plan again, Adam?
Yeah, 2 seconds. Sorry, I'm having difficulty sharing. 2 seconds. This plan?
Yeah. The proposed development or the entrance, is that going to be separated from the other part of the development?
So it is separated in the sense that you couldn't get a vehicle through the remaining gap because of the addition of the retaining wall and fencing. But there'd be no further physical enclosure forward of the principal elevation.
So why do they want another entrance and exit?
I don't know. We don't go into the why they want something.
As I say, I see it. And
Thanks, Councillor Watkins. We've got Councillor Howells next, and then I come to you, to Councillor Harvey.
Thanks, Chair. Technical difficulties. To the houses of garages,
So some of them do. They were originally consented with garages. However, a number of them have converted the garages over time. So you'll note that this property has converted their, this property has converted their garage. You note the window in the front elevation, whereas then the neighbouring property still has their integral garage.
Apologies, committee. The mic stack was turned off, so some of them are working, but
no
if they don't work, it's not you, it's the mic's playing up.
Thanks, Taylor.
So the original development would have been consented, was consented with garages, so each property had garages. So there would have been a parking assessment which would have included the garages. So I think Councillor Watkins' point about impact on parking provision with this is a correct point, because the removal of the garages such that has impacted the overall parking provision across the development, and we should be doing a parking assessment to see how that impacts. Secondly, as this is a relatively new development, generally there wouldn't be permitted development for converting garages, and those would be by application. Can you confirm whether that was the case on the original application? Because I haven't had a chance to read the decision in full.
Yes, that is the case in respect of the conversion. So we have received applications for a number of the properties on this site for either the conversion or, in respect of the fifth property, for instance, the relocation of the garage. So we have considered that as part of the applications as they've come in. In terms of the overall parking provision, though, for each property, there was an integral garage and then parking to the front of the properties. So this proposal doesn't impact upon the parking provision for other dwellings. It doesn't have a bearing on that. What they are doing is providing a driveway and access and driveway solely for this property, and in that respect, they're actually creating parking spaces off of that access point. So again, I would disagree with the assessment that this has an impact upon parking provision for the other properties on that development.
Have those planning applications for retrospective conversion of the garages been approved, or are they still in waiting?
No, they have been approved, and
right.
They weren't, as far as I'm aware, they weren't retrospective. My understanding is that they were sort of sought prior to conversion.
Yeah,
yes.
Fine. Okay, thanks. Just finally, I mean, I have some sympathy with the speaker's sort of points really around the wall and its visual appearance. But reading from your application, if the applicant knocked the wall down and then come back and applied for the entrance, we wouldn't even be talking about the wall, would we? And there'd be nothing we could do to stop them from knocking that wall down effectively. So I think, whilst I have some sympathy with it, I think our hands are tied, and the fact that we're able to put a condition on the wall to only be done in accordance with the plans is probably stretching our powers, I would suggest, as well.
And that is correct. What I would say is that, and further to the Highways comments, Highways officer's comments here today, if it was members' prerogative, we could always amend the wording of the condition so that the pillar was retained, if that was of concern, on the basis of the Highways officer saying that the pillar could remain in situ, which would overcome certainly the issue around symmetry at the access point. However, again, we would have no controls should they wish to remove it. So, again, we can amend the wording of that condition if members were minded to think that was necessary for, visual harmony and to, maybe protect the, character or safeguard of the amenity and character of the area. However, we would have no controls on it being maintained, and I don't think it would be reasonable for us to condition that was to be done given the context of the site and the lack of any sort of designation.
Thanks, Councillor Howells. Just before I come to you, Councillor Harvey, can I just clarify something with you, Adam? When you say that we could potentially ask for the two pillars to remain symmetrical, based on what the Highways officer said, if that was to be the case, then the wall would have to go to allow for the visibility to the junction. Am I right in thinking that?
So the section of the wall that's proposed to be removed is deemed to be necessary to achieve suitable visibility when accessing and egressing the site. So yes, that is correct in the sense of the section of wall proposed to be removed, we would seek its removal. However, on the basis of the Highways officer's comments, if members thought that the retention of the pillar would be beneficial, we could always reword that condition to reflect that change instead. Ultimately, we've assessed this on the basis of the information that's been submitted, and obviously the comments from the Highways officer are on the basis of the plan submitted. From the conversation today, obviously, it's been established that the pillar would be able to be retained, and that's something we could look to control by the rewording of, I believe it's condition 3, seeking the implementation of those implementation of the works to the wall.
Thanks, Adam. Councillor Harvey.
Thank you, Chair. My question has been asked.
Councillor Watkins.
Thank you, Chair. You mentioned about retaining the pillar. That could be done, but a section of the wall adjoining that would have to be reduced for visibility. Am I correct?
Yes, that's correct.
Right. I am still concerned, Chair, about the safety, highway safety in regards to you've got two entrances now, one on a corner and the other one being used, and I believe it's just unnecessary.
So, I mean, in response to that, what I would say is that that access previously granted access to one dwelling. This would still be the same. So, in that respect, there wouldn't be a change to the number of properties served by that access. I appreciate that there's another additional access now in close proximity that serves the other new dwellings. However, the local highways authority have been consulted on this. They are satisfied that highway safety can be managed and is acceptable. I would take their professional opinion and their input on this.
Thanks, Adam. Councillor Rheoli.
Thank you, Chair. It's as previous speakers have said, our hands tend to be tied here today, but the symmetry of the pillars and the visual impact that might have, I agree with the planning officer. Now the new evidence has come out from the highways officer that the pillars can be retained. It goes some way to addressing some of the issues of the long-standing arrangement that's been there. The stepping down of the wall seems to be a bit of a compromise, but we have to compromise somewhere. The only problem is that we have no authority over this wall. We cannot control it. All we can do is advise. I hope that we have good powers of conversation with the applicant and that we could, come to common agreement that this would be best for the area and everything else. But I think that we're heading towards decision time, and with the amendment put forward, or the possible amendment put forward, and the rewording, I would be leaning in favour of officer support.
Thanks, Councillor Rheoli. Councillor Jordan.
Yeah, thanks, Chair. It just goes back to what Councillor Harvey said, back to the last comment you made, where he had his application refused. Do you mean he didn't know nothing about it, he didn't know what to do? I'm sorry, I am totally bizarre about that one. I think he knew he had to put an application in, and he just didn't bother, I think. So unfortunately, I won't be recommending the officer's recommendation. I'm sorry.
Okay, thanks, Councillor Jordan. I can't see anybody else indicating to speak. I'll just make sure. Okay, we'll move forward to the vote then. The proposal is that we accept the proposal as stated with conditions. So can I ask somebody to propose that, please? Councillor Howells?
Can I just check, sorry, is that with the conditions as worded or with an amended?
Yeah.
Well, no one's proposed an amendment yet, so...
At the moment, as I said, the officer's recommendation is as per the report, which would have one pillar at a higher level, one pillar at the lower level. If members want to propose a different condition so that the pillars remain the same, then we can look to do that under delegated powers and seek to amend that. But it's just to be clear, the first vote would be on exactly what it says in the officer's report.
Can I just ask quickly then, does anybody want to propose an amendment before we vote on the main proposal as stated in the pack?
Yeah, I'm not quite sure. I mean, I know it's Wednesday. I found that out in the car park. I am getting slightly confused here. I support the officer's recommendations with the amendment as outlined, you know.
Right, so we would need somebody to propose that amendment.
But I would propose the amendment as outlined by the officer, so the pillars remain the same height. Okay,
thanks, Councillor Rheoli. Do we have a seconder for that amendment? Councillor Jones, thank you. So, all in favour of that amendment, please, that we keep the pillars the same height? Yeah. We have 1, 2, 3, 4, and myself 5, 6 in favour. Against, please. 1 against and 2 against. Okay, thank you. So that amendment is carried forward then. So can I just ask for the vote then on the overall recommendation now, granted with conditions, with that amended condition? Hopefully that makes sense. So all in favour of that, please. Right. Okay, I've been advised that because we've had that amendment, we don't need to vote again. So that's... Are we okay with that? That was for the amendment.
Chairs have them vote on an amendment, not just to put an amendment forward, rather than to put an amendment.
Right, so we do have to vote on the full proposal now with that amendment. So can I have a proposer for that, please? Councillor Rheoli, thank you. Seconder? Councillor Howells, thank you. And all in favour? 1, 2, 3, 4, 5 in favour. Against? 3 against. So that is carried. Thank you very much. Thanks very much to the 2 visiting speakers. You're welcome to stay if you want to, but obviously you can leave as well. Thank you. I'll just pause a moment while the visiting speakers leave. Okay, the next item on the agenda then is application 26/0154 in the Lamworn ward. It's Atlas Electronic UK Limited on Meadows Road in Newport. The presenting officer for this one is Joanne Davidson. Oh, sorry, I thought Joanne wasn't here. So it's Emma Emma Brinkworth, please. Sorry. Okay, third time lucky.
One of us.
The presenting officer is somebody over there. Geraint. Thank you very much, Geraint.
All right, thank you, Chair. So the application is at Atlas Electronic UK Limited, which is on Meadows Road. The application description then is alterations to an existing warehouse building, including external changes to create new dock level HGV access, an electrical plant room and associated groundworks, creation of new goods doors for a trade counter, customer service entrance, and new security gates and perimeter fencing, and associated tree planting and landscaping. So the building is an existing building which already has a variety of uses permitted on it, including the proposed use, which is for the storage of tyres, their distribution, but also, as you'll note from a description, a trade counter, i.e. there will be some trade sales from the building. Okay, it's before you because the site is very large, as you can see from that blue-lined area. It's a big building on a big plot, and that's why it's a major application. Okay, so just to give you some context, we've got the aerial view. So Meadows Road is here along the left-hand side of the slide. You can see the building itself and its surrounding curtilage, and you'll note the undeveloped areas which fringe it. Okay. So in terms of the changes to the building per se, the easiest way to show those was just to do before and after shots. I think they're already in the report, so you've probably seen them already, but just to reiterate and remind you, this is the existing southern elevation, and you can see the proposal is to put in a series of roller doors which will serve the trade counter entrance, which is here with some indicative signage. Okay, so I say in your report, so I won't labour the point. Again, change on the existing north elevation. You can see the proposal is to put in 3 dock loading bays for large vehicles. So you know, the level is dropped so that the trailer will be at the same level as the warehouse floor. And obviously that's just to facilitate loading and unloading. So a fairly straightforward and obvious change. Okay, again, a minor change then on the eastern elevation where you can see a new door is proposed effectively here, just at the left-hand end of that slide where the cursor is now. And then in terms of the plant room, which you haven't really seen, it doesn't stand out very obviously, but on that southern elevation, it's just here where that cursor is, so it's this little rectangle by here. And that just gives you an idea of the overall site context. So some new perimeter fencing then to secure the site, and some new internal fencing, which will, broadly speaking, close off the car parking area from the existing gate barrier, which is around about there where the cursor is now. So the changes then are relatively straightforward. As I say, there's no change of use here. The existing warehouse use is retained. So the only real points are the change in appearance. Again, I'm not going to say too much about that because you've seen them. There was some concern from NRW in relation to the control of surface waters on the site because they would drain into the associated undeveloped areas which then link into the Gwent Levels triple SIs. During the construction process, we can certainly control that through a chem condition, which you'll see is proposed. So there's no overall concern on that. But in terms of the general drainage arrangements, they are as existing. So however the site is being drained now, that will continue and there will be no change. Okay, so there's no worsening over the current situation. As you note, there is no change of use. There was some consideration of flooding because it is within a flood zone, but since there is no increase in risk because there is no change of use, then there's no objection to this proposal from NRW. Okay, so flooding is considered a neutral issue. It doesn't change. Okay. other issues related to the location and appearance of the fencing, but we're satisfied that it's appropriate in context and that visual amenity of the area is not going to be harmed in any way. There is some trees on site, some trees on site which are going to be felled, but they're in a poor location, they're not in great condition, and the site, as you will realise, is quite extensive. It does have green buffers, and there's appropriate room to replace the trees which will be lost, and we can secure that under condition. So we're satisfied that that is an issue that can be adequately dealt with. And also in terms of net benefit for biodiversity, again, the site has sufficient room and context to provide adequate benefit to ecology, again secured by condition. So a relatively straightforward application on this occasion, and as I said at the start, here before you because of the scale of the site. Officers recommend the application is granted with conditions. Okay, thank you, Chair.
Thank you, Geraint. We do have one visiting speaker in support of this, Mr. Valley. So you're welcome to put forward your case now. You've got 5 minutes. I'll give you a little heads up when you're about 4.5 minutes through, if you need it.
Thank you, Chair. Good morning, Chair and members of the committee. My name is Conor Valley, a chartered town planner, and speaking today as the planning agent on behalf of the applicant, Oak Tires UK Limited. We strongly support your officer's recommendation to grant full permission for the external changes which Mr Roberts has described this morning. It's important to note this warehouse has been vacant for several years, and Oak Tires has purchased the building outright, and this is intended as an entirely new location for the company. Newport will actually be the company's first location in Wales as part of its national distribution business. As Mr Roberts has pointed out, the nature of the business is the supply of vehicle tyres to trade customers. As a bit of background, Oak Tires is one of the UK's largest independent vehicle tyre wholesalers, established 50 years ago in Liverpool as a family business, which it remains. The company is growing now to around 1,000 people in terms of headcount. Having acquired the building earlier this year, Oak Tires plans to establish it as a premier storage and distribution hub to serve the wider region. Importantly, members, this operational investment, which is over £10 million, represents a significant economic boost for Newport, with around 60 plus new jobs. And these will be across a range of roles, from new fleet drivers through to warehouse operatives, middle and senior fleet management, and senior leadership positions. So this will very much be a long-term investment, a permanent investment for Newport. As Mr Roberts has pointed out, there is no new floor space created. The building is lawfully established in use class B8. The external alterations will use high-quality materials, fully in keeping with the industrial character of the Queensway Meadow Industrial Estate. And clearly, as an existing industrial area, there is no impact on residential amenity. Mr Roberts has kindly summarised the technical considerations, and just to note, there were no objections at the pre-application consultation stage, and there are no objections or technical objections to this application as it stands today. In conclusion, members, I'm personally very pleased to be involved in this project as a planning consultant, because sometimes what we do is not always seen in the most positive light, but this is fantastic news for Newport and breathes new light into a vacant warehouse building, and as I say, will create over 60 full-time new jobs. Without wanting to get ahead of ourselves, the recruitment process has already started for those new roles, and you might have seen this in the local press in recent months. So, members, in conclusion, as your officers have pointed out, the proposals are compliant with the development plan and national policy, and we respectfully request the committee to endorse the recommendation for approval. Thank you.
Thank you very much, and well within the time. Thank you. I'll open the floor to questions now. Questions and comments, please. Councillor Harvey.
Thank you, Chair. It's a question to the gentleman. If you don't mind, he said he'd be creating 60 plus new jobs. Will they be local jobs, advertised locally?
Yeah, certainly will be.
Just before you answer, I've just got to say, technically, I shouldn't be allowing a visiting speaker to speak again, but
Yeah, you can.
I can on this one.
Yes, the company has warehouse operations in the northeast of England, in the northwest, and they're moving into the southeast of England as well. So with this Newport base, the way the company actually operates, we did another one of these warehouses in Warrington last year. They drive an electric fleet now. It's being evolved in terms of the vans that are used, small to medium-sized vans. And most of the delivery drivers actually take those vans home at night instead of bringing their own car to work to cut down on journeys. So by that logic, they're locally based.
Just on a point of order, Chair, if you may, let me. I mean, it's all very nice hearing this. Is this actually a planning consideration? I'm looking this purely as a planning consideration, not a jobs fair, and I just feel that we're being taken off piste here.
Well,
I just need some legal advice or planning advice on that, Chair.
I appreciate your comments.
Thank you, Chair.
And the background information is useful, but you're right, when we come to the votes, we need to vote on planning considerations and planning considerations only.
Sorry, Chair, it was just a point of clarity, nothing to do with planning.
Not a problem at all, Councillor Harvey. As I say, the background information is useful, but when we vote, please make sure we are voting on planning considerations only. Thanks. Have we got anybody else who wants to speak or make a comment? Councillor Watkins.
Clarification on 4.6. What's HENEB? No objection. You consulted with HENEB?
HENEB, yeah. They're basically the Archaeological Trust. It's their new name.
Oh, right.
Yeah, we used to say HENEB, Archaeological Trust, but I stopped doing it because we've kind of got used to the new name now. But
okay.
Yeah, it's the trust, the Archaeological Trust.
Right. The other thing, Chair, is it's going to be a tyre warehouse. Now, what concerns me is water runoff from that, because it can be a bit toxic, you know, rubber getting wet and runoff from the factory, and I'm wondering whether a Kemp would be advisable.
Yeah, a Kemp is proposed as one of the conditions. The primary concern was to protect the triple SIs, because as we noted, if you can see in the aerial photograph, some of the land that abuts it is undeveloped. It's within the urban boundary, but it hasn't been built out. And clearly, when you move southwards into the Gwent levels proper, then those areas are protected for their ecological value. So the Kemp is there effectively to reduce the risk of polluted waters running off the site during that construction process. But once that construction process is over, we're dealing with effectively an already developed site. The hard standings are already there, the building's already there, the drainage for surface waters from the car parking and from the roof, it's already there. So none of this is changing. That's a standstill position. It won't be made worse by this proposal, because effectively they're saying we're going to be using a warehouse building as a warehouse. And they're like, fine, you technically don't need permission for that, but they do need permission for the physical changes to the building to accommodate their new use. The tyres, as valuable products, are going to be inside, undercover. They're not going to be out in the weather. And obviously, as valuable products, they also have a mind security, which I suspect is why the new perimeter fencing and internal fencing is also proposed. So we would anticipate very low risk from a warehouse activity itself in terms of surface waters.
So the planning officer is quite happy with the protection, because what concerns me, Chair, is we had many years ago a warehouse that was holding butter and which caught fire, and the old lot went into a triple SI place, and they had to actually dig it all out. And what concerns me is, in an emergency, something like this could possibly happen, and I want some sort of protection if
That's possible.
Unusual circumstances are unusual. I'm not going to say that the building could never catch fire, and I'm not saying that the fire service would be unduly considerate of a risk of runoff. Their primary aim is, as ever, to put the fire out with, maximum alacrity. Is there a risk that polluted waters in such an unusual event could enter the local drainage system? Yes. I can't think it would be in any way reasonable to require the applicant to counter for such an unusual and improbable event. We have to consider what the most reasonable outcome is. So I don't feel that the risks which accrue from this entirely lawful use of the building, if they want to put tyres in it today, they absolutely can, without making any physical changes to the building, and there's nothing we can do about that. So I don't feel that it would be in any way proportionate for us to get into that mode of thinking in terms of this development. And as I say, if they want to stick tyres in now, this afternoon, they absolutely can.
Excuse me. Thanks, Councillor Watkins. I can't see any other hands at the moment. Anybody else want to make a contribution on this one? No? Okay, we'll move straight to the vote then. So the recommendation is that this application is granted with the conditions as shown in the pack. Can I have a proposer for that, please? Councillor Harvey, thank you. Second, Councillor Howells, thank you. So, all in favour? And myself, that seems to be unanimous. Thank you very much. And again, thank you to the visiting speaker for your time. Appreciate it. Right, the final application today is application 26/0197 in your packs in the Bishton and Langston ward. It's the Penhow Film Studios Old Turnpike Road. The recommendation for this one is that it's granted with conditions. And I've got the presenting officer as Joanne Davidson. It's not Joanne Davidson. It's Emma Brinkworth today. I think she's online. Oh, sorry, Emma.
Thank you, Chair. The application is reported to committee as it is a major application by reason of the site area being over 1 hectare. Following the completion and publication of the committee report, comments have been received from the Public Rights of Way officer offering no objections to the application. Permission is sought for the change of use from agricultural use to a dog walking field. The application is retrospective as the change of use has already taken place. The site comprises of an approximately 2 hectare parcel of land. The Rock and Fountain Public House, which is a Grade 2 listed building, is located to the east of the site, and Perfect Pet Services, a dog daycare facility, is located to the west. The site is located within the countryside and the Wentwood Special Landscape Area. This is a commercial enterprise whereby dog owners book slots online in order to take dogs to the field for exercise. Bookings are managed online in 50 to 55-minute sessions with a 10-minute interval between users. A maximum of 4 cars and up to 12 dogs are permitted on site at any one time, including being used with the daycare use. The site operates during daylight hours only, with seasonal variation, approximately 6 a.m. to 9 p.m. in the summer, and is available to the public when not in use by the daycare, which typically occupies the field for around 3 hours per day. The last summertime booking is at 8 p.m. for 55 minutes. There are several key issues to consider in relation to the acceptability of this proposal. Policy SP5 of the adopted LDP confirms that development in the countryside will only be permitted where the use is appropriate. Given its nature, it is considered that the proposed development represents an appropriate use within the countryside, and there's no concern with this. The land itself is lawfully agricultural and of large scale, being over 1 hectare. Agricultural land classification predictive mapping identifies all of the land as good quality grade 3A agricultural land, and therefore is best and most versatile agricultural land. The aerial footage shows that the site has not been used for agricultural purposes for some time. The field will remain a field, and the proposed activity would not result in the removal or excavation of soils. There is no evidence to suggest that the proposed dog walking use would adversely affect soil quality, structure or drainage, and the land could be returned to agricultural use in the future if required. A condition is suggested to revert the land back to agricultural land with removal of fencing and hard standing in the event that there is a period of inactivity for a duration of 6 months or more, or if the use ceases in its entirety. The development comprises a footpath and a small dog activity feature. A 1.8 metre high galvanised steel mesh fence encloses the site. The site occupies an elevated position but has limited visibility from the public highway and is well screened by existing vegetation. The scale of the fencing and associated use is modest and does not appear visually intrusive within the landscape. The development would have no adverse impact on the setting of the nearby Grade 2 listed Rock and Fountain public house, as the site is not visible from either the building or its car park, which is shown in the picture here. And the development is generally considered to be light touch and would not result on an adverse impact on the countryside or Wentwood special landscape area. In terms of residential amenity, the nearest dwelling is Rockview, approximately 160 metres from the site, with other properties located to the south of the A48. The use would be low intensity with a maximum of 12 dogs per booking across a 2-hectare site and no more than 4 vehicles on site at any one time. No external lighting is proposed, and a condition restricting operating hours would ensure that the impact on neighbouring residents is acceptable. The site itself is accessed off a gravel lane off Pike Road via the access that currently serves the existing pet daycare facility. Hard standing is proposed, allowing space for 4 vehicles, and is considered there will be no highway safety implications as a result of the development. A green infrastructure statement has been submitted, outlining that additional tree planting and native hedgerow planting to soften the line of the fencing and the car park is proposed, which will be secured via condition. On this basis, it is recommended that permission is granted, subject to the conditions outlined in the officer report. Thank you, Chair.
Thanks very much, Emma. We don't have any visiting speakers or public speakers for this item, so we'll go straight to the floor for questions. Councillor Lowdy.
Thank you, Chair. As you know, this is in the Bishton and Langstone ward. We are seeing more and more diversity programmes coming forward for our agricultural fields, and this is welcomed when such diversity is needed. These dog walking fields are an absolute prime example of where diversity and public need actually go hand in hand. I believe that the recommendations, I'm not going to go on, the recommendations of the officers is absolutely correct, and I fully support this application for the reasons outlined by the officers. Thank you.
Thank you, Councillor Lowdy. Councillor Watkins.
I support what Councillor Rheoli said, but there's one that consultation which took place 5/6 waste management, no comments received. So how are they going to manage disposing of dog feces, basically? Have they got somebody to do that? Or how are they going to dispose of them?
So there is already a dog daycare facility that is run from the site, which is managed by staff. And the planning statement that was provided with the application also outlines that there will be at least one member of staff monitoring the site a day, so it will be disposed of in the same manner as the dog daycare facility.
Thanks, Councillor Watkins. I don't see anybody else indicating to speak. Just make sure. No, we'll move straight to the vote then. The recommendation is that this is granted with conditions. Can I have a proposal for that, please? Councillor Rheoli, thank you. Seconder, Councillor Perkins, thanks. All in favour? And that is unanimous. Thank you very much. That's the last of the applications for today. Just before we finish off the agenda, I realised about 10 minutes ago that I omitted to read the statutory statement at the beginning of the meeting. I'm not going to read it now, it would be absolutely pointless. But as most of you will be aware, most of it is to do with our conduct and cameras and microphones during the meeting, which you've all been exemplary today, so thank you very much. The only thing I will just draw attention to is that about the permission for use of images and recordings, etc., mainly for public speakers. Their notice would have been drawn to that before the meeting, so we should be covered. But I just wanted to mention that if anybody does want a hard copy of that statement, then I'm more than happy to provide that just to cover anything. Okay. So the last item on the agenda is the appeals decisions, which is for information only. So I'd like to thank you all for attending, and I'll draw the meeting to a close. Thank you very much.